Hi everyone, I'm Rachit and today I will discuss with you about our new work, a practical model for collaborative databases, securely mixing, searching and computing. This is joint work with Shweta Agrawal, Nishant Kumar and Manoj Prabhakaran. I will begin by describing the problem statement that we are looking at. Let's say there are multiple data owners, each with their own data. They wish to pool all of their data at a central server so that it can be queried by clients. We ask that anyone can query this database, that is, clients have no secret information. Additionally, when clients query, we place no restrictions on the data owners being online. We explore three basic properties that we want from such a system. Security, you want servers, clients, and data owners, the different entities involved, to satisfy some satisfactory security notion. I will explain our security model in detail in further slides. Functionality. You want the system to be applicable in varied scenarios. In other words, be capable of computing a broad category of functions. Efficiency. We want to compute on large-scale databases. Thus, our goal is to achieve something as quick as possible. The functionality that we concentrate on our work is the search and compute functionality. Today, searching or Googling is one of the primary go-to functionalities. Searching helps us because it filters our attention to look at data that we care about, and then computation focuses on this filtered database. For example, consider the following database where we have four data owners, each with their own data record containing sensitive information. On the combined data set, we can ask queries such as what is the average salary of people living at location MXL? Records 1 and 4 are selected. Such queries can be useful for research purposes on census data. We can also imagine queries by genomic scientists trying to figure out the presence of a specific genomic sequence or allele for a disease in a case and controlled population. We evaluate our work on genomic-wide association studies, which looks at such computation. This functionality can also be used for contact tracing. Let's say our smartphones capture the Bluetooth address of people we come in contact with. These can be then input into the database and filtered based on the addresses of newly contracted COVID patients. We can then perform operations on the data for contact purposes or use it for research on sensitive data. I will briefly describe our security model. Recall that during query, we ask that the clients need not have any secret information and the data owners need not be online. Since we expect reasonable security at the server, this means that we, we must have another party, which we'll call the key server. The original server is dubbed as the storage server. We assume that these two servers do not collude between them. Clients are allowed to be malicious, while all other entities, the key server, the storage server, and data owners, are honest but curious. We analyze the security of our protocols in the universally composable security model. Additionally, we want data anonymity among the data owners. That is, we require that the data cannot be traced by the servers or clients back to the data owner from which it came. Before I move forward and explain our solution, I want to talk about the non-colluding server model that we propose. We are fortunate today to have multiple competing cloud server providers such as Amazon, Google, Microsoft, IBM. Thus, we can place different competing providers in charge of each server. Additionally, the work of Jagadish et al. And Cho et al. Have successfully used this model in the context of genomic data. They suggest that these two cloud servers can be managed by distinct governmental organizations such as the NIH and WHO. Such a model has been successfully used in the past for primitives such as private information retrieval and implemented on systems such as Riposte and Splinter. When we talk about efficiency, we want to compute on large scale databases. Applying generic techniques like fully homomorphic encryption, functional encryption, and multi-party computation would give us solutions that work on the size of the complete database. This is very inefficient. The goal of our system is to get something proportional to the filtered database. In our protocols, we allow computation on Boolean queries. That is where we can compute on queries where location is an XL and let's say gender is male. We will achieve efficiency comparable to this ideal notion. There are works in literature that have looked at similar problems. We briefly mention a few of them and state that these either don't give us our required model of security, functionality, or efficiency. As I explained previously, FHE, FE, and MPC applied generically do not give us our required efficiency. On the other end, there are efficient systems such as CryptDB, Monomi, and Seabed. But the security model which they look at is a bit different, where they require clients to have secret information. Searchable symmetric encryption, introduced by Song et al., is a primitive that focuses on the search functionality. Controlled function encryption by Naveed et al. Only performs the compute functionality. Additionally, there are examples of handling multiple data owners in literature. Multi-key searchable encryption is one such example, but they do not guarantee anonymity among the data owners. I also want to mention different solutions in the context of genomic computation. They do not look at the functionality of search and compute together. We refer to our paper for a detailed comparison between our work and the works mentioned in this slide, and others such as ARCS, BlindSeer, and different SSE solutions. We introduced the framework of functionally encrypted data stores. It consists of two components, searchably encrypted data stores and computably encrypted data stores. As the name suggests, the search functionality outputs the filtered dataset. It uses the primitive of searchable symmetric encryption from literature and modifies it for our use. The compute functionality computes the output on the filtered set. It is based on the primitive of controlled functional encryption and MPC techniques. Our contribution is twofold. We describe how to combine these two primitives to obtain a single data owner setting for FET. We describe a new technique which we call onion secret sharing and use that to accumulate data securely from multiple data owners. I will now describe how the data flows in our system. Imagine a data owner interacting with our functionality. Recall in our example, we had specified columns for search and compute. Let's assume that the search columns, gender and location, are sent to the SCD, and the compute columns, salary and genome, are sent to CED. After data is accumulated, the functionality is placed the encrypted data on the storage server, and the keys are kept on the key server. Imagine that a client that queries has a query consisting of two components, the filtering component and the function it wants to compute on the filtered dataset. Client sends its filtered query to SED and the function to CED. At the end of the SED computation, the outcome of the filtered dataset is revealed to the storage server. This filtered database is then input into the CED functionality, and the CED functionality computes a function which is then sent to the client. Note that there are additional leakages in the systems, both in the SED and CED systems, which we don't explicitly state in this slide. Also note that the client receives the output of the computation and has no other information revealed to it. I will now describe our SED solution, but first we will look at searchable symmetric encryption. SSE is a primitive that was introduced by Song et al. In 2000. Since then, there has been significant research in this field. I will focus my attention on one such protocol, Multi-Client Oblivious Cross-Stack Protocol by Jarecki et al. The main goal of an SSE system is to output the filtered dataset, that is, the search functionality. I won't describe the full specifics of the protocol, but will concentrate more on the data flow and the modifications that we do. Let's say a single data owner has a database consisting of the columns gender and location. From this, they can construct an inverted database where the keyword male corresponds to the data records 1, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on. Similarly for keywords MXL and PJL, which are the locations. MCOXT allows clients to perform Boolean queries, such as select all records where gender is male and location is MXL. In the specific case, the filtered records would be 1, 5, and 11. You can also imagine Boolean queries where you ask for an OR functionality or a NOT functionality. During setup, the encrypted data is sent to the storage server and the data owner retains its keys. The client sends its filtering query to the data owner and the data owner replies back by authorizing this query with tokens. The client then sends these authorized tokens to the storage server, who performs the computation and sends the filtered data records and the complete information back to the client. Our suggested modification based on MCOXT is simple. Allow the key server to store the key and play the role of the client during the query phase. Elaborating, during initialization, the key is now sent to the key server instead of retaining it with the data owner. During query, the clients send the filtering query to the key server, who interacts with the storage server, at the end of which this filtered set is revealed to the storage server. These are then input into the CED functionality. There is leakage, which I'm not explicitly stating in the slides, but we have alternate protocols and alternate modifications in the full version where we can reduce some of this leakage. Next, we look at the CED functionality. To give a taste of how our CED protocols look like, I will describe an instantiation using secret sharing. Imagine a database where we want to retrieve the entire genomic sequence corresponding to a filtered dataset, let's say 1, 5, 11. A data owner during setup secret shares the genome into two components such that the plain text is capital X XORed with small x. It keeps one part at the storage server and the other part at the key server. Note that the keys need not be as big as the database and can be stretched using a PRF applied to the serial number of the record. I will hand-wave over those details for now. Remember that the CED functionality already receives to the server the filtered dataset. The server computes XOR of the output with randomly chosen values A, B, and C and sends these to the client. It then sends A, B, C and the filtered dataset to the key server. The key server XORs its share with A, B, and C and sends these values back to the client. The client locally decrypts to obtain the plain text genomic sequence. Note that again, client does not see any extra information apart from the outcome it is supposed to get. The leakage to the key server in this protocol are the indices of the filtered set. I described the value retrieval scheme above, where a client wanted to simply retrieve the values in plain. We also have a separate summation functionality, which is similar to the value retrieval protocol, but instead we use additive secret shares. Our protocol for general functions can compute any circuit using garbled circuits. We use the construction inspired from CFE in literature for this. Additionally, we describe a composite functionality which is extremely helpful for combining our basic functionalities. Imagine if you want to calculate average, which requires dividing the summation by the number of filtered records. Then we can use the composite functionality instead of going through the general functions route. The general functions route might be communication heavy because of garbled circuits. We use this composite functions notion extensively in our evaluation. The two solutions that are described, SED and CED, can be combined together to achieve a solution for single data owner FED. Next, I want to talk about how to use these single data owner versions and convert them so that multiple data owners can pool in their data. We do this through the core primitive of onion secret sharing. Imagine two data owners, each secret sharing their message into two components, row and sigma. They want to send row to the storage server and sigma to the key server. The security property that we desire is that the two servers should not be able to identify the ownership of a data record. Our main technique is essentially to randomly permute these data between the servers so that the association with the data owners when you accumulate the data is lost. As an example of relevance to us, suppose the key server wants to add a short private tag to the messages being secret shared, so that the tag persists even after we randomly permute. We will call this tag tau. I will now describe our solution. Let's say the public key encryption of a message M on the public key of the storage server is denoted by square brackets, and on the key server, on the public key of the key server, it is denoted by curly brackets. The data owner computes the following operations. It computes alphas or betas or gamma for each data record it has that combines to 0. It then computes alpha and encryptions beta, rho, gamma, and sigma, where the quantity beta rho is onion encrypted and it has layers of encryption on it. It then sends it to the key server. So basically, the key server has alpha, beta, rho, gamma, and sigma, where alphas or betas or gamma is all 0 to 0, and this is onion encrypted. It then chooses a tau, a random tag tau, and it XORs with alpha, and it shuffles this data around and sends it to the storage server. The storage server receives the data and again shuffles it around and computes taus or alphas or beta and stores the row value by removing the encryption. It then sends this data to the key server, who also removes the encryption and computes taus or alphas or betas or gamma. Note that alphas or betas or gamma was chosen to be all 0 strings, thus we get tau and sigma. Notice that in the last step, the key server does not perform any shuffling, and thus the shares tau comma sigma correspond with the shares row. And the association between the shares is lost because of the shuffling operations or the random permutation we perform on them. This template can be used to generate multiple data owner protocols for both SED and CED functionalities. There is a bit more work involved, which we will defer to the full version of the paper. We evaluated our protocols on genomic-wide association studies. The data sets were inspired by the I-challenge and research conducted with genomic studies. I want to focus on a few important observations from our results. The data owners scaled well. We were able to efficiently service 100K data owners, each containing a record. The clients were extremely efficient with hardly no computing or communication cost, with timings as fast as 3 milliseconds. The time on the server depended on the filtered dataset and not the size of the entire database. I will mention some concrete numbers now. There are three protocols that we'll look at: the single data owner versions, denoted in green, and the multiple data owner versions, denoted in red and purple. Note that we have two different protocols for multiple data owners, and that depends on how the key server chooses this tag tau, which are described in onion secret sharing. I won't describe the difference between these protocols, but I'll focus on the concrete numbers that we get. The dashed line indicates the search component, and the solid line indicates the whole computation. The first plot is the initialization time for maximum allelic frequency, which is essentially an average computation of allelic frequency and a maximum function at the top. We use a composite function protocol, and in turn, this uses the summation protocol. The x-axis is the number of data records of the combined data set, and the y-axis is the time of all the parties combined. Notice that it scales linearly with the number of input data records. Similarly, we also plot MEF query time, which is the time taken by once the client makes the query and once the client receives the query, the total time taken by all the parties. The x-axis is the number of filtered data records, and the y-axis is the time taken. Note that the overhead over the baseline searchable encryption system is small. We have more concrete numbers for the communication cost in our paper. We also compare with generic MPC techniques such as garbled circuits, fully homomorphic encryption, and the GMW protocol. We refer to the full paper for such details. Thank you.